The threat of impacts is increasing throughout the lower Atlantic rim as Hurricane Erin strengthens overnight and defiantly delays her northward turn. Plus, additional tropical threats are looming out in the Atlantic. And is summer over for the United States? Well, it could be for part of us. We're going to take a look at all of that, but we're going to start with the impacts of Erin and her projected track in our tropical update. Hurricane Erin has continued to strengthen overnight back to a Category 4 storm with max sustained winds 130 miles per hour and a minimum central pressure of 945 millibars. You can see here on the satellite presentation much better than yesterday when we looked at this. The eye wall is rebuilding itself. We went through an eye wall replacement cycle as strong storms do, went down to a Category 3 and has now come back up again. You can see the satellite picture looking really good this morning. The eye is clearing out. Here's a line of latitude here. This is 23 north. Look at this. And so you can see this thing is barely tracking just north of west, but these jogs will happen where you get these little bumps back to the west as convection fires up around this eye. It is defying that northwest turn. All of the models are projecting it to go northwest imminently, so we're going to watch this throughout the day, but the longer it stays on that path, the longer the more credibility some of these westward models are going to have, and the more impacts it will bring to the islands. We'll look at those in a minute. But there are your sea surface temperatures. Back here in the power zone, we have temperatures in the mid to upper 80s, and it's got this ribbon of warmer waters to get through as it tracks to the north. Eventually, once it gets close to Cape Hatteras, the line between Cape Hatteras and Bermuda here, you'll see the reduction in strength, and all of the models show that. I mean, you can see here we've got most everybody's here at a Category 4 that they initialized well, at least with the strength, but they go down markedly over the next 24 to 48 to maybe 72, 96 hours when we really start to see things go downhill as it gets into cooler waters and higher shear, and that's what is expected to happen. There is the track. And everybody is continuing to recurve it imminently to the northwest and eventually the north, and it runs, everybody shoots the gap between Hatteras and Bermuda. There it is. You see where I'm moving the mouse. But the longer it stays west, the more credibility these west tracks have, and the more it has a chance to impact the islands. Tropical storm force winds in the Turks and Caicos and down into the Bahamas, some of these northern islands, certainly looks likely. Definitely going to see high life-threatening wave action there. So you have to take those alerts that you're getting seriously, folks. And so you're going to see some impacts, heavy rain at times with some of these squalls moving into the area also. Here is a look at the European model in terms of where it projects Erin to go. So going to keep it a little bit west initially, but then here it comes up to the northwest, and see there it goes off to the northwest, and then it turns to the north when you get out here to about where Florida, Georgia meet, starts to go north, and eventually recurves it right in the middle between Hatteras, there's Bermuda, you see that? Takes it right through the lane, getting some winds here into Hatteras. By the way, Hatteras, Adair County, and in Ocracoke as well, mandatory evacuations have been issued for high surf. We're going to see this thing. This thing is a massive storm, folks, by the way. These big hurricanes that kind of sit out here just churn the ocean up, and you're going to see lots of swells coming in, a lot of coastal flooding, and a high risk of rip currents. This is life-threatening, folks. Do not go out into the Atlantic under any circumstances. As I said, this is a massive storm, and there goes the European taking it on out to sea eventually. Icon model is a little bit more concerning. It stays on the westward path a little bit longer, and eventually as we get on in here to Wednesday, there it is, Wednesday, we get on into Wednesday night into Thursday morning. Look where it is, very close now to Hatteras, maybe 150, 200 miles off of Hatteras, but we're really getting some impacts in here into eastern North Carolina. Places like Wilmington up to Hatteras, New Bern, even into Virginia Beach could see some rain as these outer bands work in, and certainly some tropical storm force wind gusts around Hatteras are not out of the question at all. That appears more and more likely. There's the official track. It's down here, and you can see all of the wind energy associated with this thing, and then it goes on to become eventually a Category 2 and eventually a Category 1 by late in the weekend. So it's going to be kind of a slow mover. It's going to take all week to get up the coast. taking its own sweet time, and it's just going to pound the coast from the Bahamas all the way up to Nova Scotia with heavy, heavy surf. Rip current threat is going to be high up and down the coast. If you're going to go swimming, know what you're doing. Pay attention to the alerts. There's the radar. I would stay out of the water, by the way. There's too many jellyfish in the water anyway these days, and sharks and all that crap. But stay out of the water, folks. And just anyway, it's going to be dangerous. There is the radar. We'll put this into motion, and you can see how everything's kind of rotating around the centers up here offshore, but these rain bands kind of come in and clip portions of Haiti, the DR, as this moves to the northwest. Some of these other areas in the Turks and Caicos up here toward the Bahamas, and maybe even some of the central Bahama islands are going to feel the impacts as well. There is tropical storm force wind probabilities, and you can see parts of North Carolina in the green here. That's 5 to 10%. I'd put it a little bit higher than that in terms of actually seeing some wind gusts out here, especially around Cape Hatteras, back through the Bahamas, Turks and Caicos, and some of the other islands here. We've already seen a lot of rain down in Puerto Rico and some of the British Virgin Islands too, and continue to see some squally weather through the Bahamas. Definitely, as I said, rip currents, or not rip currents so much down there, but heavy, heavy surf is expected, and high wave action. There's your rip current risk today. High to moderate all the way up and down the coast. As we go through tomorrow, everybody turns red pretty much. So this thing's going to move up, and you're going to see life-threatening rip currents associated with this as well. So you have to be very careful. Here's the wave action. Watch this as we put this on into motion over the next couple of days. We're going to get out here into Wednesday and Thursday. You can see, we'll stop it right here between Wednesday and Thursday. This is Thursday at 6 a.m. If we put a little flag here, you can tell exactly what's going on. 24-foot seas just off of Hatteras, out here near the center of circulation, 50 to 60-foot seas, and then back here along the coast, 15. So we're looking at 10 to 20-foot seas all up and down the eastern seaboard here, folks. So you've got to be very, very brave to go out on the ocean. I would just not do it. And look at this as it gets on up a little bit higher in latitude. Look at this. The whole entire Atlantic Ocean out here in the western Atlantic is disturbed by this hurricane. This is a massive, massive storm, way, 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 way out in time as we get on in toward next weekend. And the following week, we start to see Erin. This is it way up here. I'll roll it back just so you can see it. There it comes off the coast of North Carolina. See it way down here at the bottom of your screen? Watch this. We get on up here toward next weekend, and it moves on into Ireland and the UK. So you guys could start to feel the effects of this by the 28th of August. Okay, so that's next Thursday, beyond this Thursday. All right, so that's pretty far out, 252 hours out, so things can change, but know that you could be impacted as well. We've got some additional threats coming up, folks, as well, but we've got our weather IQ question. Again, it is related to the tropics, so that's coming right up. Then we're going to look at the additional threats and what's going on out deeper into the tropics, and then we're going to look at fall, because it is coming, and coming in a hurry. How's your weather IQ holding up with all these tropical questions? Yesterday's was about the peak of hurricane season, and today's is about the end of hurricane season. And I meant to say earlier, thank you all for joining me today. We've had a lot of growth over the past month, and thank you for subscribing and joining the team. If you haven't yet subscribed, please hit the subscribe button, give the content a like, leave a comment. If you've made a comment, that I read all of those comments and respond to them. If you're somewhere overseas or even in the States, let me know where you're commenting from, and any questions you have, I'll answer those. If there's something I can pray over for you, that's the most important thing. Let me know if there's anything I can pray over. I'll put it in the comments, and I'll make sure to do that. I pray over you generically anyway. Please pray for me. But with that, let's get on with the question. And here it is. What date marks the last day of hurricane season in the Atlantic? October the 31st, December the 15th, Thanksgiving, or November the 30th? If you know it, type it in the comments section. If you don't, just wait till the end of the show, and I'll reveal the answer to you. But right now, I'm about to reveal what's going on in the tropics as we continue along with the tropical update. All right, lots more tropical season to go. We haven't reached the peak yet. That is the 10th of September, in case you didn't remember yesterday's IQ question. Well, the National Hurricane Center has upgraded a lemon to a tangerine out here. We've got a tropical wave that's way out here in the Atlantic, and it is going to get into this area, and we have a 50% chance now over the next 7 days of this developing. Most of the models agree that there's going to be something that develops here. The disagreement is, where will it go? But there may be a consensus may be starting to build, and we're going to look at that. Here is the satellite picture for the Atlantic, and you can see the area of interest right here. Tropical wave, another tropical wave coming, and more tropical waves back to the east of there. There is Hurricane Erin. It's sticking out like a sore thumb. Frontal zone up here in the Atlantic and some junk going across the Midwest, again with convection up there in the United States. That's what's going on out in the Atlantic. Well, here's what the GFS shows. I'm going to show you again the GFS and the European and then the ensembles so we can get a look at what's going on. But the GFS takes Erin out of the picture and it takes this system down here. This is the latest run of the GFS down here into Puerto Rico, and look what happens with it. It takes it right into the Caribbean, through the Bahamas, off the southeast coast, and boom, recurves it back out to sea, hits Nova Scotia, and there we go on out into sea. Okay, that's the GFS. That is the latest run of the GFS. The earlier run, the overnight run, had it going into the States again, and it's bounced back and forth with that. It's mostly been inland. Well, here is the European model and its depiction of what happens. Well, there goes Erin out of our hair, and there comes that wave right through the basically same track until it gets past Puerto Rico. Then it shoots the gap again between Hatteras and Bermuda. Tropical storm, or Hurricane Erin rather, is going to leave a weakness here for a time. Another trough is going to be moving into the United States, and those things could open the escape hatch again for the next system, which will be Fernand, to move through. So we're going to have to watch exactly how that plays out. This is the GFS ensembles. Let's see if the ensembles agree with the operational run. You always have to do that. Here it comes. A lot of ensemble members have the system down here in the Caribbean. Keep your eyes on that. All those numbers represent individual ensemble members and what they're doing with the storm. The yellow colors, the red colors means they're getting stronger, and where the placement is means where the placement is. And so watch this. They go out on a time. Here comes the shotgun. Some of them return to sender, and some take the course, the low road, right into the States, the southeast coast, or into the Gulf. There's your GFS ensembles. What about the European ensembles? Well, here they are. There goes Erin. Look at that. Everybody's in agreement. What a shot. There's some Western model. Look at these Western little lows, though, taking it very, very close to Hatteras. That would be very, very bad. It's already going to be bad with coastal erosion. But here's the next batch. Not quite as many members as we saw yesterday. Oh, there they are. There they're popping out. But still, you've got great dispersion here. Look at this. A lot of them take it right through the Caribbean into the Gulf, and then some of the members recurve. So the European ensemble's a little bit more threatening than the operational run itself. Well, why is that the case? All comes down to the upper air pattern and exactly how things play out, and that is not known at this time, nor will it be over the next 2 or 3 days, but we're going to watch and see how things evolve. There goes Erin, leaves a weakness. When I say a weakness, what does that mean? Well, there's a ridge out here. We've been talking about these ridges out in the Atlantic. You can see this ridge centered kind of out here. These act as a blocker. Air kind of goes this way, okay? Kind of goes clockwise, or I'm doing a terrible job illustrating today. There it is. Here's another ridge center back here, okay? Clockwise flow. The gap between these is where tropical systems can go if those ridges are pulled back far enough from each other, okay? So watch what happens. The European ensemble actually builds this ridge in, but look what's coming down the pike. This is fall. Fall is marching on the United States, and it's coming in a hurry as we get on out toward the weekend and early next week, which is about the same time a tropical system would be in the area. And you can't really see the tropical system here very well because it's not all as strong as Erin was. But anyway, if it's low enough, it can get under this trough and then get captured by it, pulled into the United States. If it's way up here in the Atlantic again, it's going to shoot the gap and not be in anybody's hair. So we're going to watch all of that. This is the MJO. If you're new to the channel, you probably haven't seen this, but I talk about this occasionally. The MJO is an area of convection down in the Indian Ocean. It goes from the continent out to the Pacific. Phases 2, predominantly 2, and then into phase 3. These are favorable for tropical development in the Atlantic. We won't go into all those details, but just know that when you're in phase 2 or phase 3, that this is basically representing the location of that convection in and around the Indian Ocean. It presents, it affects things it affects jet stream currents. It affects tropical, velocities going up and down, and so it creates favorable conditions when you're out here in phase 2 and 3. And again, kind of a secondary peak is phase 5. Well, this thing is getting into phase 4 and cycling around, so we're going to have to, and then back into phase 2 again. So we could be in a time where we're not so favorable for a week or so, and then we get back into a favorable period again as we approach the peak and maybe get past the peak. So we're going to watch how this thing progresses. The European model kind of runs it around, gets it back into the circle of death here, and all this is kind of technical, but just know that we could go through a period of time after the next threat or two emerge where we quiet down in the tropics a little bit before we pick back up again. So that's what I'm watching. We'll keep you posted on all that stuff. Now we got to look, see what's going on across the U.S. because we've got some storms moving through, severe weather threat this afternoon, and fall is coming, and might have to look at space weather too. Severe weather possible this afternoon in the Central Plains and Lower Great Lakes Midwest area. High base thunderstorms back here in parts of Nebraska and South Dakota. And as we get over here into Chicago, in around Chicago and southern Wisconsin, got an MCS, little area of convection that's moved through overnight. That's going to refire, bring a tornado threat as a frontal zone sort of sits there in that boundary as storms move along. It could provide an extra spin. Could see a tornado or two. So watch out for weather alerts this afternoon. Wind is going to be the primary threat in all of these areas, and hail back here in the west. These thunderstorms back over the plains are going to be high based, and so we're not going to see a tornado threat, but certainly could see some wind gusts and hail with lapse rates being a little bit better. There is the frontal zone map, the surface map, and you see that front kind of reinforcing this front. This front is what's going to eventually kick Erin out, and we'll see general showers and thunderstorms up and down the plains and back into the southeast. And over time, we're going to see a little bit of a cooler front pushed back into the southeast as we go out in time. There is a severe weather and flooding threat, potentially southern Wisconsin, northern Illinois, and severe weather back here in the plains as well. You can see that show up pretty nicely. This morning got activity in Minnesota, all throughout Illinois and Wisconsin and Iowa. That'll diminish a little bit, but then refire. That system will refire back up as it moves along that boundary. And so watch out for any of these storms approaching northern Illinois, southern Wisconsin as we get on in toward the evening hours with high winds and potentially a tornado threat. And we're seeing that same kind of scenario play out back here, minus the tornado threat back in Nebraska predominantly, where we see another little area of convection bringing in some hail, potentially in some wind. Everything else will kind of die out as the nighttime wears on. Tomorrow, things fire back up along that frontal boundary from the Great Lakes back through the southern plains, and the southeast is not looking too bad. Just have to dodge a few showers and showers up in Montana as well. There comes Erin in, and as we get on through the nighttime hours, things kind of diminish over the states. Erin moves up, gets close to the coast. Look at that. The rapid refresh actually brings some banding in here to eastern North Carolina through the afternoon and evening hours on Wednesday, with that frontal zone providing the focus for showers and storms, more energy moving into the west and bringing some rain up into the plains. And there you have it, folks. Alerts map, hot conditions prevail here in the Mississippi Valley with extreme heat warnings surrounded by heat advisories for temperatures running up into close to 100, and heat indexes going over 100, near 110, and even 115 in some spots. Flood watches up where we've seen a lot of rain. We'll continue to see more heavy rain this morning and this afternoon with showers and thunderstorms. Dense fog advisories will go away later, and heat advisories up in Montana. Extreme heat watch up for later in the week for temperatures coming back into the 100 and teens out in the desert southwest. Temperatures this afternoon and tomorrow, there's your boundary, 70s and 60s even up here in the northeast where it's going to feel chilly, 90s back down here. By the way, Raleigh hit its latest 90-degree day in August. We haven't hit 90 since yesterday, since 1996. That's the latest it's hit 90. It's been a very, very cool August, and I'll show you that here in a second, but that's what's going on there, folks. Temperatures running all the way up into the 90s to the northern plains, hundreds here in the Mississippi Valley. Heat index is going up in the desert southwest. It's going to be hot too, and not too bad in the northwest where temperatures in the 70s. Again, 70s tomorrow, not bad out here along the west coast, up and down I-5. You should have a pretty good drive, tranquil weather and cool temperatures. Hot in the plains, hundreds, and then hundreds and upper 90s in the south as well. Southern plains, hot and muggy in Florida, and there is some wedging down the east slopes of the Alps, and as Erin passes through, we're going to get more northeasterly winds and keep us relatively cool in the mid-Atlantic and the upper parts of the southeast. Taking a look here, I'll show you a couple more things real quick. Looking at, let me get on the tropical tidbits display. Here's what the European ensemble is showing as we move through the week. There comes that cooling ahead of that, or right behind that front, and some general cooling with northeasterly flow down the Alps. Cool weather punching into the plains as well. But look at this. It starts to warm back up as that ridge slides back to the west. Look what happens here, though. Boom! European ensemble as we get on into next weekend, bringing fall down like a hammer through the Midwest and the northern plains into the Ohio Valley and Northeast, and it punches all the way into the Southeast. Boy, it's going to feel cool and dry and kick summer out the door as September starts to roll around. Another punch behind that. According to the European model, GFS is pretty potent as well. It brings the hammer down too. Look at this, purples. That's 15 degrees or more below normal, folks. It's going to be hot out west comparatively, but it brings cool weather all in the plains and it punches another shot in too. So we're kicking summer in the teeth. As a matter of fact, check this out. I wanted to show you this image too. Here is the departure from average for August through mid-month. It's been warm up here in the north relative to average, cool down here in the southwest relative, or warm in the southwest relative to average. And look at this, normal to below for the rest of the nation except for Florida, very much below here in my neck of the woods in the southeast. That has been pretty amazing. Here is the temperature or the precipitation map as we go through the week. You can see the southeast up and down that frontal zone through the mid-Atlantic, and northeast is the place to be for rain. A few showers working into the Midwest as we go on in toward Friday, but relatively dry with the exception of the southeast for much of the nation as we head through the week. That's it for your weather forecast today, folks. Got to look at solar weather to see if there's space weather, see if anything's going on there. A hint, not much, and then we're going to wrap up with the IQ. All right, space weather is quiet as a mouse. Look at this down here in the KP. Boom, nothing going on below 2 across the board almost, except for this last little tick up. We've got some solar wind coming. This coronal hole is turned away. The wind from that will be approaching us, so maybe minor geomagnetic conditions possible over the next couple of days, but nothing going on solar flares. Got a couple of sunspots rotating around the rim. You can't see those on this display, but look how quiet everything is. Don't even have but a couple of minor sunspots. Got a couple more coming around, so we'll see what they do. Earthquakes, not a lot going on in the United States. Alaska, Aleutians, nothing going on there. Had a little bit of one here, 4.5 offshore of El Salvador. Volcanoes in the Pacific, a ring of fire, nothing going on. The same 3 we've been watching. And of course, moon phases. We're down to a 24.5% waning crescent on our way down to a new moon on August the 23rd. So that's what's going on with the moon. And there's what's going on with fall. It's 35 days away officially. When we get to calendar fall, meteorological fall is much closer because it starts on September the 1st. And that brings us all the way back around to the answer to today's weather IQ question. The question is, what date marks the end of hurricane season in the Atlantic? October the 31st, December the 15th, Thanksgiving, or November the 30th? And the answer is, the correct answer is November the 30th. There you go. June the 1st through November the 30th is your hurricane season in the Atlantic. So there you have it, folks. I hope you've enjoyed the show. If you got any questions, let me know. But always, thank you so much for joining. And as always, this is Cold Rain reminding you, other stations run 24/7, but we got you covered 48/14 right here, right now in Cold Rain's Weather World. Be back tomorrow coming at you with another show. Take care, everybody. Have a great day.